So these guys, the crux of what they're talking about here is the COVID scientism religion that's come out. That's where they really end up at, although they touch on the trans stuff first. And part of what it requires is that decentralized ability to question the narrative, question the ideas, question the data, and how that got thrown out the window, and how they use the term we're standing on a precipice. And I do think it's a precipice too. It's that precipice of turning scientism into a full-blown religion.
There's two kinds of dangers. One is that we've arranged a society based on science and technology in which nobody understands anything about science and technology. And this combustible mixture of ignorance and power, sooner or later, is going to blow up in our faces. I mean, who is running the science and technology in a democracy if the people don't know anything about it? And the second reason that I'm worried about this is that science is more than a body of knowledge. It's a way of thinking, a way of skeptically interrogating the universe with a fine understanding of human fallibility. If we are not able to ask skeptical questions, to interrogate those who tell us that something is true, to be skeptical of those in authority, then we're up for grabs for the next charlatan, political or religious who comes ambling along. It's a thing that Jefferson lay great stress on. It wasn't enough, he said, to enshrine some rights in a constitution or a Bill of Rights. The people had to be educated, and they had to practice their skepticism and their education. Otherwise, we don't run the government. The government runs us.
Michael Crichton wrote some very important words about consensus in science. Historically, the claim of consensus has been the first refuge of scoundrels. It's a way to avoid debate by claiming that the matter is already settled. Whenever you hear the consensus of scientists agrees on something or other, reach for your wallet because you're being had. The work of science has nothing whatever to do with consensus. Consensus is the business of politics. Science requires only one investigator who happens to be right, which means that he or she has results that are verifiable by reference to the real world. The greatest scientists in history are great precisely because they broke with the consensus. If it's consensus, it isn't science. If it's science, it isn't consensus. In 1945, the Guardian newspaper wrote something very similar. They wrote, "The freedom of science to push its inquiries into every field and to proclaim its own results regardless of established opinions was an article of the progressive faith throughout Europe." Within science itself, the young pioneers, the revolutionaries like Pasteur and Darwin, Semmelweis, Arrhenius, Van 't Hoff, Freud, and Einstein, who had to fight, often single-handed, against the closed ranks of an overbearing orthodoxy, were the most admired and beloved figures. They were the heroes of enlightenment. Then the article discussed how the communist government of Russia had corrupted science by politicizing it. Now let's go back in time to the year 1821. The most powerful hurricane to ever hit New York City struck Lower Manhattan. The storm surge at Lower Manhattan was possibly as high as 13 feet. The only thing that saved Lower Manhattan from complete destruction is that the storm came in at low tide. 1821 was also the year when the Guardian newspaper was founded. Historically, the newspaper of British progressives, there's been a paradigm shift over the last 2 decades. The Guardian has found a much larger global audience and gains international recognition as an authoritative journalistic voice. The Guardian spent 180 years questioning authority before they became an authority themselves. And now they pride themselves in censoring any scientist who goes up against the scientific consensus. They made a decision 4 years ago to censor any scientist who goes up against the orthodoxy. They apparently believe that corn stalks turning brown in the autumn is caused by climate change. And they also believe that they can see the future and it's going to be catastrophic. Now they censor everybody who disagrees with their climate nonsense. The Guardian has become the very people they claimed they were fighting against in 1945. In other words, the progressives of 1945 became the reactionaries of the year 2018.
And it could be the worst thing we've ever seen in our lives if we really let it get to the point where science isn't science anymore. It's the scientism thing.
Science.
Trust the science.
The superheroes, the scientists.
I'm tired of hearing that.
Trust the science! Trust the science!
Today, fewer Americans say they trust science.
They don't trust science because science is increasingly untrustworthy.
Science writer Andrew Follett has analyzed research for NASA and the Energy Department.
The only group that trusts science right now is Democrats.
I trust the scientists.
Maybe that's because much government science is being misused by politicians. For example, some activists want to limit ocean fishing with something they call the Climate Solutions Act. It calls climate change the greatest threat to American national security and promises equitable solutions to every special group of victims. The administration's deputy director of climate told Congress that the bill will bring
exciting, urgently needed progress on climate change.
Jane Lubchenco cited this paper that made the remarkable claim that closing more of the ocean to fishing can increase catches of fish.
I saw oceans of opportunity.
But oops, the paper was retracted. One scientist called its logic biologically impossible. And it turned out the paper was written by Lubchenco's brother-in-law. But she never told Congress that, or that she edited the paper.
It's an egregious violation.
Her goal is to get the government to spend more on environmental regulation. And the party in power likes that. So they don't care if she just breaks the rules.
They could not care less. Her job from their perspective is to generate papers that rationalize and justify the regulations they want to impose.
The White House never punished Lubchenco for her ethics violation. In fact, after her testimony, she was appointed co-head of President Biden's Scientific Integrity Task Force.
We need to have scientific integrity.
Now, the National Academy of Sciences has banned her for her improper conduct. Yet she's still head of scientific integrity for the White House.
Today's bad government science goes well beyond a few bad actors. A lot of what's called science today is just left-wing advocacy.
New fields like fat studies, African studies, Latinx studies, queer studies, these fields are essentially entirely fake.
Fake? Well, some of it's clearly fake because specialists in these fields keep being fooled by people who submit gibberish. Follett blames this perversion of science on the government.
The government wants to generate that kind of nonsense.
Now, the government doesn't want nonsense studies, but its science agencies, like much of America, have been taken over by leftists who want to promote their agenda and themselves. And in science, you promote yourself by getting papers published.
Important papers can advance careers, generate media interest, and secure essential funding.
And government provides most of that funding.
Nobody wants to publish something that goes against what the paymaster says.
You don't get the tenure track position unless you get published. And you don't get published unless...
You don't get published unless the NSF likes your results.
Or the NIH, or the CDC. That's how bad science gets published.
There was this paper, well funded by the National Science Foundation. It said that glacier science is sexist.
Because the majority of glaciological knowledge that we have today stems from knowledge created by men about men.
Our National Science Foundation gave her research team almost $500,000.
It's our tax money paying for it. I'm ticked off.
They're giving it out specifically to promote their agenda.
Wrong as this is, I don't think most Americans know or care that people in government now use your money to promote progressive nonsense.
I mean, I think we'll all start caring when the bridges start falling down and the planes start crashing. That's the inevitable end result of this.
They break down pretty well how that process happened with that, with the COVID thing, and how it's happening with the trans thing as well. Part of the crux of all of it, like all these things, is who's letting you talk, who's letting you question, or who's being the Machiavellian, who's doing the Nietzsche thing. Part of the free speech world, I don't know where it started happening several years ago. People started like losing their minds and getting upset. Like people should not be allowed to say flat earth stuff. People should not be allowed to. And my whole idea with all this, what are you talking about? Like let it flow. And if the stuff's true or not true, it'll sort itself out. It really will. Beyond that too, is I should be allowed to hear what their arguments are. I don't believe it. I don't even start out believing it, but I want to hear them. Like you don't get to decide for me that I don't go get to hear people that I don't believe. I can go listen to people that I don't believe. I like to listen to people I don't believe. One of the only reasons I was feeling about that with the evolution stuff is the religious people are going to have issues with some evolution, although Mormons, I think, can deal with it better than the average Bible Belt creationist for sure. But I think in this here, if Mormons really wanted a good argument as to why they are not a cult, Brett gives it here. But it requires some evolutionary talking. His argument is you've advanced from cult if you've survived long enough and shown some evolutionary benefit. You are officially not cult. You've passed on into religion because of that evolutionary fire. But the thing is, you have to accept that your religion's been evolving like things evolve. Let's start listening.
We'll have interacted with many times in many different contexts. In the comparison between fatwa culture and cancel culture, you could view them as distinct and one preferable over the other, or you could view them as the same thing in a different form, to make sure that what is accepted by fiat rather than by some process in which we all participate. And here's the thing that I think needs to be explored. One of these is obviously religious, right? It is by religious authority that the fatwa on Salman Rushdie was issued. And the other of these is nominally secular.
Yes.
That is the wrong way to think about it, though. It is true at a factual level, but it is untrue at a deeper level. And what I would argue is that we come, all of us, irrespective of what lineages we emerge from, we all come from a world of religious authority. Every lineage has that feature up until some point at the least, and some of them continue to have it. Those religious authorities are the result of an evolutionary process. And what I've argued many times, and I'm going to argue here again, is that you cannot found a religion in the same way that you cannot write a myth. You can write a narrative, and then selection can act upon narratives, throwing out almost all of them relatively quickly after they are written, preserving a few that have some kind of value, and then honing them and turning them into durable myths.
Yes.
And the same thing can be said of a religion. You cannot found a religion. You can found something that functions on those modalities, which I would say is correctly understood to be a cult. And then a very tiny fraction of those cults turns out to have some sort of durability, lasting power, and capacity to, in some way or other, enhance the lives of believers and adherents.
Yeah, and cult always has a negative valence to it, a negative connotation. But if we try to put that aside for the moment, what you're arguing is that a story with staying power can become myth, a cult with staying power can become religion. But at its origin, neither a story nor a cult has the capacity to, at once, at its inception, call itself either myth or religion.
Right. So what I'm getting at, I agree with the point about the negative valence. I think we need to stop having a negative valence for cults and stories, and we need to think about them in terms of the chances that one is a durable one are very low. So our skepticism of both things, right? A story can be entertaining, but what are the chances that a story is valuable? Well, if we know nothing about the content of the story, it's very low. And the same thing for a cult. What is the chance that set of beliefs and traditions is more beneficial than it is harmful to adherents? Chances are very, very low. All the religions of the world that have succeeded in protecting a population and facilitating its flourishing have started there, and all the myths have started as just stories as well. So
yeah, but I think we need different words though, because cult
words. So Brett's always been pointing to the idea that religions all did serve as evolutionarily beneficial. We all come from it. It was part of our lineage, so it obviously had to be part of what our genes created and made us and got us to this point. So it's almost kind of like that same level of stop getting angry at people for what you believed yesterday, or even if it was last generation. It's what got us here. And
religion has to be exerting some kind of evolutionary pressure. It can't not be.
To get to this point, it had to be there.
Like, because otherwise, what is it? There's nothing else that doesn't exert evolutionary pressure. That affects every aspect of society like that.
And can we drop it and leave it behind now, or do just other religions and other cults come out of it? And then one of the things he pointed at is that everything that starts to become a story or a narrative starts out as a cult. They're saying take away the negative valence of that, because maybe that is all we are doing is just different varied levels of cults or things to try to figure out how to get going and moving forward. And the ones that survive evolution are the ones that get to make it to the point of being a religion, because they keep the people in it. It's not combustible. And one of the things they get to, I don't know if we'll hit the comment or if it's right here, because I'm going to jump like 5, 6, 7 minutes, but he talks about it, it's like this new woke cult, man, it's not even got like 4 or 5 years. It has all the trappings of the startings of a cult, but I don't think the way that it is, it could even last if it wanted to 20 years. I don't know, but that's my guess. Did he talk about, oh, I thought I saw the shibboleth. The shibboleth.
Shibboleth, that is a fun, hard word.
Well, it's purposely a hard word. He was actually talking about how the word shibboleth itself was a shibboleth because of how you said the word shibboleth gave away which team you were on.
Shibboleth.
Yeah. Hey, you're one of those? Get them.
Let me just insert one of the things that I was hoping to talk about. It's going to feel very not in keeping, but I know that you're going to be able to return to this.
Yep.
I ran into this story this week, Zach. What is the tampon tax? 28 states do not charge sales tax on menstrual products. This is on a site called usafacts.org, which is a site I had never heard of before, which if you look, we're going to try to look at what they say they believe. Principles, USA Facts believes that facts deserve to be heard. Democracy is only successful when it's grounded in truth. We're here to provide that grounding with trusted government data that's both easy to access and understand. We standardize data straight from government agencies and present in plain language with helpful visualization so you can understand the history of programs and policies. Okay, and they say a number of things here about being comprehensive, understandable, factual and unbiased, contextual. I don't know about people-centric. I don't know what they are claiming there, but and it's started by
I know what they mean by people-centric.
Microsoft.
What's that?
The LA Clippers.
I know what they mean. People-centric means empathy.
Oh, I
That
think I've
magic
heard
word.
that word. I've never felt it.
Empathy is ex-Mormons' new critical thinking. They used to have them, like it was cool for a while to have a monopoly on critical thinking. Now it's kind of faded. Now it's empathy. They have a monopoly on empathy. And if you don't agree with them on everything, if you don't affirm everybody's identity in every single way that they want you to, then you lack empathy. That's the only explanation. It can't possibly be that the person is just incorrect scientifically.
Mormons have the power of the Holy Spirit, and woke ex-Mormons have the power of empathy. It's
I'm gonna give some religious advice. You know how Dallin H. Oaks used to say that your testimony would be found in the bearing of it? Empathy is found in the screaming of it. So if you do the Herlihy boy thing, you just follow the Farley thing. If you can't feel empathy, go find somebody out there who is the right identity to be yelled at, and just start turning red and screaming empathy. And it's still not quite empathy, but it's like you're getting there. The same way about bearing your testimony will get you.
See if you can cut in that scene from Saved. I don't remember anything about that movie.
Oh, where she
except
screams
when Mandy Moore hurls the Bible and goes, "I am filled with Christ's love."
Yeah.
I don't know what this is.
Yeah,
there's a movie called Saved where it's actually a pretty good movie that's making fun of evangelical teenagers and their hypocrisy. It's actually kind of funny.
Oh, so it's not like a Christian movie. It's like a parody on.
It's
a post-Christian movie.
Yeah,
it's not anti, but it's also
But yeah, they definitely pointed that.
I mean, the first
time
that
hypocrisy.
I mean, the first time I ever drank alcohol, it was with a group of friends, and this was my choice. What I wanted to do was get really drunk and watch God's Not Dead, and it was a good time.
No,
I'm so dedicated to bad movies. I watched God's Not Dead too.
So I need to get back to it. So me and my wife love watching bad movies, and one of the bad movie genres we'll go back to every now and then is like shitty Hallmark movies. But then we did like I showed her Troll 2 or whatever. I went for a long time just watching shitty Christian movies, and
Did you watch the Neil Breen movies with her?
The what?
You haven't done the Neil Breen stuff with her? That's Red Letter Media classic stuff.
Oh, what does he do?
The worst movies ever.
He's a candidate for the worst filmmaker of all time.
Okay.
And I've watched all of his movies. He's got like 4 of them. I've watched them all.
See, I've never even properly watched a Neil Breen.
I do love bad movies. My wife actually got me for my birthday last year. It's like hanging up above my door. You can't see it, but it's a street sign for Nilbog.
Good old Nilbog.
Sorry. You got a second?
Yeah.
Listen, I'm concerned about Mary. Something's going on.
Yeah, me too.
You don't
Dad,
need to help
get
her.
off me! Hey, Barry, you've got to get rid of the evil in you. It's God's will. God's will. Christ died for your sins. Okay, wait a second. So are you not going to accept our intervention here? Kidnapping? No. You are backsliding into the flames of hell. You've become a magnet for sin. We've all witnessed it. Sure. Veronica acting all pure. What about last spring break at the Promise Makers rally, huh? Oh my God, you are making accusations as we're trying to save your soul. Barry, turn away from Satan. Jesus, he loves you. You don't know first thing about love. I am filled with Christ's love. Jealous of my success in the Lord.
Yeah, that is a perfect analog to woke allies. That's
Yeah,
woke
absolutely.
allies when they're trying to save somebody from Mormonism. That's exactly how that works.
It's precisely the same thing. Yeah. So if you're lacking, if any of you lack empathy, scream it at a friend. Let's see.
We gotta do that because I'm thinking of the James 5. If any of you lack wisdom, if any of you lack empathy, scream at a friend on the internet.
Well, I
until
did.
you feel it.
I did submit a complaint to Boston Children's Hospital, so I'll let you know how that goes.
Oh yeah.
Telling them, I was letting them know that I'm sure they don't want to be seen as hateful in their transphobic rhetoric of saying biological female is going to further cause harm and contribute to the trans suicide epidemic. I thought it was going to ask for an email or something, but it didn't, so I didn't get a screenshot of it even.
For a major city.
What is this? Oh,
the water system for half the country. Hacking into the stock market.
These movies were all made in the last decade, by the way. It looks like
holy shit.
It's all easy. Network-centric warfare.
This guy, if you ever wonder what a cult starter might be like if you could get any power, like this guy.
Did you ever watch Nathan For You?
Oh yeah.
It makes me think of that episode where he got the Johnny Depp impersonator to come to that gift shop in Hollywood, and he made people think that they were going to be extras in a film by purchasing stuff from the gift shop. And he got a Johnny Depp impersonator and a Bill Gates impersonator, and the movie was about the Earth was going to get hit by an asteroid, and Bill Gates' character, Johnny Depp, was a hacker, a retired hacker who was too old for this shit. And then he called out of retirement to hack into the asteroid and blow it up before it reached
Yeah, you're
Earth.
describing the movie.
That's what this feels like too.
Yep, you got it.
Yeah.
This
it's
is
a movie
serious.
where he's smart. He knows how to do everything. He's smarter than everybody. He's got the tools that he needs.
He's got four movies. That's that. 4 movies. They're all 5 hours long. 5 now. Okay.
Oh, so he's the main actor too.
He's the main actor, and he's smart. He's the best.
He
can
writes,
hack.
produces.
He's even got some magical skills. All the women love him.
No, if you send him something like, I can't remember, it's like $150, you can buy his 5-hour film.
I developed a way to control any computer or satellite the government had. The fact that I became so individually, electronically powerful scared my government as well as others.
He needs 2 laptops in the desert. That's how techno-tastic he is.
I'm an American. I'm an American. I love this country.
Holy
shit. My country.
I did not hit her, Mark. I did not hit her.
I love
nudity on YouTube.
I love you.
Yeah.
Will you marry me?
Jeez. There's actually a whole subreddit called YouTube Titties.
Called what?
Oh,
called YouTube Titties, where it shows you certain
really?
scenes where you can actually see boobs on. It's Wheeler Walker Jr. Pussy in Boots. It has boobs in it.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah, have you ever seen that? You know,
Yeah, I know
Walker
the song.
Jr.?
I know his songs. Yeah.
Yeah, the music video has bare
My name is Aaron
boobs.
Brand.
Nuh-uh.
I always thought I was doing the right thing and preparing.
Well,
for
wasn't
life.
there that one with Robin Thicke? Like that, they did one that was all in. I don't know if it was on YouTube.
I was the first in my class in college.
So I know there's a lot of there's quite a few album covers with boobies like that. So when on YouTube they put the album cover up, like Surfer Rosa, Pixie Surfer Rosa has boobs.
By the way, by the Chili Peppers, but the color is inverted.
I remember in the 90s when Surfer Rosa, that a lot of the CD shops would just make sure to put the price tag over the flamenco dancer's boobs.
That's funny.
All right, we should get back to the
Boy, talking about getting off track.
yeah. Well,
we should just watch Best of the Worst. We should be the Best of the Worst review or reaction show.
There we go. We can be the movie reviews.
Soldier, hacker, computer scientist,
holy shit,
biotechnology developing terrorist with magic cancer powers
given to him by this rock.
Given to him by magic
Talking
rock.
about canceled.
To him by
yeah, that's what's his name?
Max Landis is canceled.
Max Landis, John Landis' son. He's been canceled out the wazoo.
An old man that he finds in the desert, and he's going to use his secret agent bioterrorist hacking powers to...
Is he good at that stuff?
Well, he's the best at that stuff that has ever been. He's going to do that to buy and spread anthrax, to threaten Vegas.
What will he do if they try to stop him?
Because I need to think about this. Goddammit!
This feels like they're
like that when I'm talking about a Neil Breen.
This feels like their Science Man Explains Terminator Genesis video. That was one of my favorites. I still haven't seen Terminator Genesis, but I kind of want to, because like the trailer reveals everything about the movie and it just looks so absolutely terrible.
When they
it
do
has to be the worst of the Terminator series.
When they do their Dr. Scientist episodes?
Film.
Yeah.
Vegas. Yeah. Terrorist attack, which is going to start.
He's the best.
And he's going to stop. He's stopping the terrorists that he started.
How good is he at this stuff?
Because his dead wife would want that, because they had to kill the wife, because he's too good at his job.
We'll always be together.
And
do we see his ball sack?
If they kill him, they can't kill him, because if they kill him, then he'll kill everyone in the country. So they can't kill him. So they kill his wife.
Yes,
but not his family. That we need for one scene.
How good is he at this?
He's the best at this.
Talk about his ball sack.
Yes, we see his ball sack. We see his ball sack. He has the best ball sack. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
For Rich.
Oh my God.
No, Rich.
And he is the best that has ever been at being his job as a super secret agent, bioterrorist activist. And he wakes up every morning under his car with "Help Me" written in blood.
What does he eat?
But it's not his blood. He eats tuna. He loves tuna. He really loves it.
Jesus, man. That seriously, it looks and sounds like early 90s quality home movies.
Oh yeah. But well, yeah. But he obviously gets some people who are actors who think they've signed up to do like actor roles to play the other parts for him. It's a wild crap.
No, that's Red Letter Media. They do an episode where they review his film course. Like they actually fork over the money and they buy his film course. And they point out like there's a scene where he's talking about the importance of motion in your shots. And in his own film course, he freezes the frame to do a voiceover. He can't even. It's amazing the lack of self-awareness.
It's wild stuff.
It's relevant, but you always see those two things together with regard to this guy. Oops, I lost the. Oops. So take away my screen for a second, Zach. Thank you. So the original article here. That got me to this site, what is a tampon tax, begins with this sentence. About a quarter of the US population are women in the 15 to 49 age group, and while not everyone in the group needs menstrual products, footnote, it's an essential part of life for many. So just before I go to that footnote, I will say the question is one that may not be of interest to many of our listeners and viewers, but it is a question about if you are one of the, half of Americans who at some point in your life are likely to end up eating menstrual products, and this feels like a necessary, this is something that is necessary that you did not choose, that is just part of what your life is, should that thing be taxed, right? And so that's what these data are being collated to address, like which states do, which states don't. But this footnote, not everyone in the group needs menstrual products. The group, again, being women in the 15 to 49 age group. Footnote 1, well, it turns out these people don't know how to write footnotes because footnote 1 is irrelevant, but it's actually footnote 3 that they mean here. That's tiny too. For those of you looking, you can now see it says women outside of this age group and people of any gender who menstruate may also need these products. Now, again, this is on a site, usafacts.org, that has described itself.
Out of all of the stupid language they use the stupid words to avoid saying woman that they've used, I think vulva-bodied person might be my favorite.
I haven't heard that one.
I've heard that one a couple places. That's like double woke, because for whatever reason, woke people like to tell you that it's not the vagina you're talking about. The vagina is just the hole. It's actually the vulva you're talking about. Shut the fuck up. I don't care. It's colloquially, it's a vagina. Okay. I understand the whole thing itself, but so that's a woke part. And then the other half of the woke part is just the absolute at every cost avoiding the word woman.
They have that complaint that if you heard that thing of the cotton ceiling, which is it's like the glass ceiling, but the cotton ceiling is as soon as you get down to the panties, then suddenly it matters if somebody's a girl or a guy or not, and that sort of thing. And they use that comment against lesbian women who won't have sex with the females with the dongs, and they call that's the cotton ceiling.
Females with dongs.
But the thing with all of it is then they'll say you guys get so. You just define somebody by their genitals. You're defining somebody by their genitals.
You're reducing someone to their genitals.
And then the next day,
us vulva-bodied people will not be reduced to our genitals. God damn it!
Yeah, or they call them front hole having people or stuff like that.
Front hole, yeah.
But then they'll complain that you reduce people to their genitals, and you're like, what? You guys just can't.
If I wanted to write an absolute disgusting sociopath, rapist piece of shit in a movie, he would describe a woman as a hole.
Yeah,
that's the most. That might be the most disgusting way that a man can describe a woman. That'll get me to start sounding like a feminist. If you say, "Oh, look at this hole over here," you'll get me to be feminist. Like, fuck you, you sexist asshole.
It all just horseshoe theories in immediate, and it horseshoes around and goes all the way back around to another horseshoe. It's like full circle, swelling around itself, but. As we all know, as we talked about yesterday, they don't care. They don't care about all the contradictions.
And indeed, I will find here the Washington Post interview of this guy, Steve Ballmer. Zach, you can show my screen again if you want. The Washington Post interview of the guy who founded USA Facts. This is an interview from 2017. It says, again, the former chief executive of Microsoft and the current owner of the LA Clippers. He describes himself here as a pro-facts partisan. Okay, so he's trying to be clever here. He's a pro-facts partisan. So on this site, which describes itself as many ways as I can think to, as being about facts, not about opinions, not about caring about your feelings, not about choosing an ideology, it has snuck in to the footnote of this article the idea that you are a woman if you say you're a woman, and that is going to mean that we can no longer talk about basically menstrual products being only for women. And it feels to me that this is very much precisely, if I may, Zach, precisely about the same kind of thing that you are talking about here with regard to sneaking in ideas that are just bald-faced against what everyone can see, right? It's how you feel, how you want to dress, how you want to present. So some people won't agree with this, but it's all good. But then claiming that how you feel and how you want to dress makes you the thing that you're not. And therefore causes a site that claims to be about facts and is being, was started and led by a so-called pro-facts partisan to tie themselves in knots, writing footnotes that make no sense at all, is a sign that we are not in a reality-based universe at this point.
It is exactly that we are not in a reality-based universe. And what I was going to argue as part of this model is that, we talk about these things as virtue signaling.
Yeah.
I'm going to argue that whether that is, there's certainly an element of that, signaling your virtue to people. What these really are, though, more fundamentally, is shibboleths. Right?
They are shibboleths, yes.
They are shibboleths. And so imagine for a second that a cult...
A shibboleth being a word that the pronunciation of which can identify whether or not you are of this or another tribe.
Right. So the basic point is the word shibboleth itself is arbitrarily, the correct pronunciation is arbitrary. And somebody who has just learned your language, a spy, may be able to read it and pronounce it in some way. But among the various ways, shibboleth, shibboleth, whatever you might
Sepulveda.
say. Sepulveda.
Our favorite one for whether or not you're actually from Los Angeles or not. Sepulveda.
But it reveals that you're not one of us.
Mm-hmm.
And the point really is, those of us, us who are playing the role of the secularists here, looking at the woke, going, wait a second, what you just said is so wrong. I can explain to you exactly why it's wrong. And we're completely missing the boat. And the point is really, the wronger the better. Because what you want, if you're going to inflict this stuff on doctors, for example, right, you want 17 things that doctors now have to say that they all know aren't true, so that somebody who's not really with you and is just hoping this will blow over reveals themselves. Right? Mm-hmm. You only want the people who are, will do anything to stay in, and therefore will sign up for whatever nonsense you've decided is medically sophisticated.
I think I lost track. Who's the you here? Which side is the you on?
If you are the revolution,
like the woke revolution.
Well, woke is one version of this, but if you are the revolution that is going to use fiat to hand down, here is how you are to behave. Salman Rushdie, he is not an acceptable human being anymore. Yeah. You are to accept that he is no longer acceptable and that has certain consequences. You are to accept that these treatments are safe and effective, right?
J.K. Rowling is no longer an acceptable human being.
Right. If you are going to accept the handed down from on high conclusion about who's in and who's out and what's true and what's false and how we are to behave, right? That's the point, is that this is either one or several cults haven't passed the test of time that are now behaving with the authority to make us subscribe. And anybody who doesn't subscribe is cast out, is punished, all sorts of things happen to them. So some sort of secular equivalent of a fatwa. Mm-hmm. And people, therefore, who don't get cast out, increasingly are accumulating beliefs at odds with the basic facts of reality, right? How can that be, right? Well, this is how that can be. And I would argue that in one sense, the secularists are, again, in some ways, at fault here, because what's happened is it's this phenomenon, apparently various people have said this, the religion-shaped hole. Mm-hmm. But to the extent that it is true that religion is a product of evolution, that its purpose is not to tell you how the universe works, but to tell you how to behave. It is a narrative structure that comes with prescriptive recipes for well-being, and that the stories that come along with it are at odds with the facts, either because those who wrote those stories didn't have access to the facts, right? Or because the purpose is to be at odds with the facts in order to figure out who's on board and who isn't. So what we are dealing with is a bunch of cults that are using an architecture built into the human mind, right? The desire to have somebody tell me how it is that I should behave in a confusing world. And if that somebody is an ancient tradition that has passed the test of time, then there will be at least some wisdom in the prescriptions of how to behave, not in the facts as they are described, but in the what you're supposed to do. The thou shalt and thou shalt nots will carry wisdom. That is not the case for some brand new cult that is handing down pseudo wisdom and nonsense stories by fiat, backed by threat, right? That's where we are. And
well, it's not inherently the case. So your point is, if it's ancient and it has persisted, there is very likely to be some wisdom there. If it is modern, and therefore it has not stood any test of time, that is all we know. It has not stood a test of time, and therefore the near certainty that there is some wisdom therein is much lower.
Well, I'm going to go a step further, and I realize you are correctly repeating back an argument that I just made a few minutes ago, that we have to be indifferent as to whether or not it will stand the test of time. In the case of the modern cults, I don't think we do. These particular active cults that are using this religious modality to feed us prescriptions by fiat power, because there is science, and we are able to look at the things that we have been told about what we must do, and we are able to evaluate the question of whether or not they did function to our benefit, right? So, for example, the question of vaccine safety and effectiveness, which we were handed by fiat. These vaccines are safe and effective, right? Follow the science. That's what we were told. Now, we can see that story coming apart, And so the fact that we have been handed something that caused people to harm themselves or to take risks that they didn't need to take. Why were children vaccinated with these things if they stood effectively? No, a healthy child.
Let me see if I.
This vaccine debate brought me one of my favorite Joe Rogan lines of all time.
What's that?
Which was when he interviewed Sanjay Gupta.
Mhm.
He kept telling him, like, you guys were lying about me. And Sanjay Gupta.
So what we're watching.
He actually seems like he really was just almost. He probably isn't, but he seemed like he was just kind of a nice guy that was trying to convince Joe Rogan that he was wrong.
Well, no, you know what?
He told him that, like,
it's just like a missionary that like gets caught out by something and they weren't prepared for that. Like he's a true believer. That's what he seemed like.
Yeah,
and
no,
like,
I don't think he had
the plain facts. Like it's just like a Mormon being confronted with the plain facts. You just kind of see him go deer in the headlights and deflect.
Yeah, I don't think he was bad faith. And
and
the things that he does know that are bullshit, he kind of says, that's just kind of the way it is, man. Because when Joe Rogan was like, you guys lied about me. You said I took horse medicine. And he's like, well, I mean, lied. I don't know. That's a bit strong, right? Like trying to sort of pass it up. But the best Joe Rogan line I've ever heard was when he took it in a direction I wouldn't have thought to take it, when he just goes, I could afford people medicine, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Like, I really like it. I really like that how Joe Rogan, like, when the guy's like, well, I mean, it wasn't really a lie. He's like, no, you said I took horse medicine. Like, he just wouldn't drop it. Like, he wouldn't let him. Like, cause like a nicer interviewer would have just been okay, moving on.
He's
but
usually pretty nice, but
like,
he was mad. I don't blame him.
I mean, that's
because
one of those
you
things
spend
where
your
it's
time
like
in these atheistic skeptic circles. You're against all this woo stuff, and that's Joe Rogan. He spent a lot of time in those circles, and to then be accused of pseudoscience,
well,
that's a real accusation.
The incredible specificity of such a weird lie is also so creepy, because like it's
a useful lie. It was a useful lie to make him look like an idiot.
Exactly. I guess that's exactly what was the point. That's
So
exactly why they did that.
I'd say this whole episode, I'm going to go to his rant here in a little bit, but the whole entire thing, he definitely shifts off into the COVID and how that stuff got wacky and goofy, and the new CDC rules don't make any sense. Like everything that happened all along and the way they hid information and didn't do anything. Once again, Larsen thinks that this was all just ran smooth. My biggest complaint with Larsen in this world, not only is that he's starting to play along with that stuff, is that it's almost kind of like that dog sitting in the room on fire or something like that. He says what the universities are like. He still seems to plainly think that they're still based in truth and hard evidence and all that sorts of stuff, especially things coming out of the humanities. But he also thinks that this whole COVID thing just went willy-nilly, not only willy-nilly, smashingly. This whole thing went great. It was science won the day, and if it just wasn't for those conservative right wingers, it would have just been a perfect old thing. And no, if you follow Brett and Heather and this stuff, and even the things that have come out recently, it was a hot mess of stupidity all the way through. And I'm more than positive Richard Feynman would have been pointing out all along that it was a hot mess of stupidity all the way through. Nobody acted like an actual scientist who were in positions of institutional powers of what we called our scientific powers. They all acted like interested dipshits.
Well, also like, it's like, I'm not an immunologist. I'm not an epidemiologist. Not any kind of ologist of any kind at all. But here's things I know. I know that I have never met anybody that was born after about 1950 that ever had polio. I don't even know people who know anybody who were born after 1950 who had polio. Also, basically everybody I've ever met in my life has had the polio vaccine. And so and what I can get from that without having to know anything is that the polio vaccine is effective. If you get the polio vaccine, you won't get polio, and it's safe. Doesn't hurt you, right? It was like literally 2 weeks into the COVID vaccine where people who got the vaccine got sick.
Yeah. And
so guess how I know it doesn't work? Guess how I can tell?
So I think that's sort of the thing that was what I was going to bring up, is that whenever you push back on the skeptic, the scientific community, whatever, telling the I fucking love science Reddit idiots. Whenever you push back and say that, like, well, okay, they were saying that masks didn't work, then they were saying they did work, and now they're saying that anything other than an N95 is basically just trying to catch mosquitoes with a chain link fence, little more than a face decoration or whatever. And they always respond with yeah, that's the best part about science, is that it changes with new information. It changed with new information. I was like, that is not what the CDC is saying. They're not saying, hey, we learned new things and now we're changing information. It's every single time they change, they act as if they had always been of that opinion. It's all of the sudden, because before,
and whatever the current
to say
thing,
that this was out of a lab in Wuhan, that was conspiracy theory. To say maybe we shouldn't have people come from China, that was racism, until it wasn't. And once it wasn't, it never had been.
It never had been, but then also whatever current moment we're in is now officially the science. And if you try to question it, even the current idea or the past idea, whatever was currently in the middle of the science as dictated by the science gatekeepers, that's so the whole concept of the science is testing the experts and questioning the things. But if you question any of it at all, you got screamed down and screamed out of places and called an idiot. And
I mean, the great strength of science is that, unlike all the other epistemologies, science believes in continuing revelation.
Well, this is one of the things too that drive me nuts with it. Is there's so much stuff that, like, because there were high-level epistemologists or whatever who there were.
You don't believe in a closed canon, do you?
The book of science, the final book of science, said there shall be no more books. Okay.
Yeah.
You're
the
adding
book of
fan
sickness
fiction
said
onto my
that colds
science.
are just colds.
Yeah.
COVID's just a cold. The book of science is closed.
So there was so much stuff that, like, just basically your layman's brain, you didn't need to be a scientist to know that they said, hey, no, this stuff's for sure long-term safe. And you go, you can't know that. There's been no long-term yet. You can't know that. That's just
then
impossible.
There's the other stuff that's just like when they put up the barriers at the cash registers.
Oh yeah.
And like, and you're just looking around like, okay, so I mean, we're in a supermarket. I see 15 people handling onions right now.
Yeah.
Like, and we're trading money in the car, and like, but this piece of glass, this piece of plastic.
There was so much stuff. I mean, I remember I got a bunch of pushback on my Facebook because I noticed right at the start of it, all these stores were making people stop at the front of the store and put on masks and wash their hands and do all that stuff. And what it was causing was a bottlenecking at the front of the store, and everybody stopping and grabbing and touching each other and handling each other and all that sorts of stuff. And they said, this is just exactly what you centralized big brain planners do. You backfire on yourselves with your stupid ideas every single time. You would obviously be well away from each other much better if you just went on as normal. But now we've all stopped and given each other hand jobs in the front of the store here without even you caused the bottleneck and you caused the thing to happen. But there's a million one things of that. And then there's all sorts of things that well after we all knew that something just wasn't true, like the vaccine didn't really fully protect like a vaccine, or that the masks were a bunch of bullshit. They still just held on to it for months and weeks afterwards. And then finally they give the mandate sometime later. Yeah, we're changing it now. And if you'd followed anything, you're like, we already knew the masks were bullshit months and months and months and months ago.
No, I know that was so. We went to a bachelor party last year. One of my friend's bachelor parties. We flew to Denver, and I was so just goddamn finished with all the mask nonsense that I had a mask on. I didn't wear it. Like, I was like, I won't pay a fine, I don't think, but like, if nobody tells me not to wear a mask, I'm not going to. So I went through the Salt Lake airport and the Denver airport, didn't wear a mask, didn't even consider it. Like, I got some dirty looks. Nobody came up to me and told me to wear a mask or anything like that. But I was like, fuck it, I don't care. I'll get weird looks. I can deal with that. And then one of the guys that was on the bachelor party, I had never met him before. And when we got to the first restaurant, we're having our drinks, and he was like, so what's his, just out of curiosity, why don't you want to wear a mask? Like, are you like, and it's like he was trying to be nice, but then he goes, are you like anti-data or something like that? And I was like, what data? What data are you talking about? Okay. Because right now you're wearing a fucking neck gaiter You know what that does? Nothing. That does jack shit. And the CDC has even said so, you dumb motherfucker. So if I and the CDC agree on this, then how the hell are you still saying that I'm the science one?
And we all know too that it's not like they're coming around and getting better at science. If there was suddenly a super spike into COVID, they would immediately mandate the masks again tomorrow. They didn't learn an ounce.
No one's ever going to apologize to me, but I just know that like in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, however long it takes for enough time to have passed where people can look back and somebody will announce that like the solution to COVID outbreaks is wash your hands. If you feel sick, stay home.
Yeah.
Do you ever?
Well, there's going to be a whole bunch of people that, like, 10 years from now pretended that they knew that the masks were bullshit. And you're going to be like, ah.
Well, because I listened to Skeptics Guide to the Universe for a decade. And that was one thing, because like they always brought up the potential. Like one thing they brought up all the time was that our civic authorities, government authorities were not handling the inevitability of pandemics seriously. But one thing they always talked about was like, because everybody's really concerned, like, oh, flu season, what do I do? What do I do? And like Steve kept talking about, like, turns out the science says the simplest answer is the best one. Wash your hands. Like frequent hand washing. That's the best thing you can do. And other than that, go about your life and don't worry about it. Like, but
I remember maybe 20 years ago, you guys probably do too. Some point or sometime you kind of sit around and all kind of wonder to yourselves, like, do you think there's anything we're doing today, like blood clots? I mean, like leeches of the past to deal with like bloodletting and all that stuff. Do you think there's anything like that we'll find out is just completely crazy? And you all, in the thought processes, you all had to kind of sit there and stop there and think and go, I don't know. I heard maybe someday we'll figure out that chemo was a bad idea because it was extremely harsh and dangerous and there was always something better or something like that. But I don't know what. And now, like in this moment, after stuff just got all full super sciencey, super rational sciencey, for what it's not because it's because actual scientists got pushed aside because the religious scientism scientists took the forefront of everything. I can think of 1,000 things now. And it used to be 20 years ago that was kind of like a hard thought experiment. And now it's just easy. Like, yes, I can think of plenty of things that we're going to be saying, what the hell happened if we survive long enough for it.
The dietary supplement industry is like many billions of dollars. And it's magic. It's all magic. None of it is good for anything, with like a couple of tiny exceptions. Like some people like have an iron deficiency and taking folic acid, like, that kind of thing. But like the lion's share of the whole dietary supplement,
if you're really deficient, a daily multiple could help. If you're really deficient,
which, by the way, if you're iron deficient, if you are iron deficient, by the way, don't just trust the scientists on that. Because my wife, the first time she got pregnant was they were trying to figure out what's up with her. They're like, oh, you're low on iron. A lot of people, become anemic when they're pregnant. It's pretty normal. We'll check your levels. And they kept saying that every time. They're like, oh yeah, they're lower than last time. And she's like, okay, what do we do about that? I'm taking a shitload of iron supplements. It's not doing anything. Like, well, your body's probably not absorbing them. So take more of them and then try next time. And then finally they had to do this thing where she went to the Cancer Institute and they gave her these, they're called Venifer injections, basically. And that fixed everything immediately. And so the second time, she got pregnant, she went to the doctor and they're like, yeah, your iron's a little bit lower than normal. We'll keep monitoring it. It's the same doctor. And then she went back the next time. They're like, yeah, it's even lower this time. Say, okay, we need to get me on that Venifer treatment. They're like, oh yeah, I guess we could do that. Like, no, we had to do that last time. We're going to do it this time right now. Like, and because she monitored it specifically. She knew the specific, the specific whatever mineral that she was low on, the specific data point to look out for. And she's like, this one is the one last time that was low that you guys said, okay, finally, now you need the Venifer treatment. And so she's like, I've been paying attention to this. You didn't tell me about this, but give me the Venifer treatment. So they're like, okay. So don't just trust the science. That's stupid. Especially don't just trust the doctors are just going to catch everything.
Yeah. So yeah, the supplement. I mean, I know from the workout world and all that sort of stuff, people used to always come up and ask me like, what are you taking? What's all this stuff? And the answer was always
What's your magic pill?
It was always nothing. I didn't take any pre-workout. I didn't do the one supplement that does work a little bit, and it's very, very minimal, small percentages, is some creatine. And that's just because it just retains water in the muscle a little bit, and so it makes it look bigger.
Yeah, but like, are those supplements maybe blue tape?
The rest of them are bull crap. Protein, like I said, creatine and protein work, and why? It's because they're actually just food. If you really think of it, they're just, creatine's part of red meat, and protein's just food, and so they call it supplements, but it's not a supplement. All the rest of it was BS. But I think he gets into a rant here, and that's the last thing I wanted to catch off of this one. Although this whole entire episode is worth watching if anybody wants to. I swear it's just like a whole entire. It's him standing and planting his flag. I'm sick of the scientism. I'm sick of the scientism. I'm sick of, because I think I honestly said, I said to Jared, like, I swear he was kind of like listening to our past episodes. Not that he really did anything, but it was like kind of came in right at the perfect time, because he's talking about like, hey, chill on the concept of religion, but you people who've gotten out of religion, you're falling into a big, bad, terrible thing. And as Heather says here, it's a precipice. We're sitting on top of a precipice. And it's, as we've all been talking, that like we're getting to a place where people are full religious fanatics, and they've added into that full religious fanaticism that they think they got the science on their side and all this sorts of stuff. So they're also super big brained, PhD science, super religious, everything. And it's a juggernaut of a super monster of a freaky thing going on.
We are simply taking a version of history that serves an ideology, and we are imposing it over actual history. We have the guilt and innocence of people being a matter of encyclical as well, right? So the raid on Mar-a-Lago is supposedly justified by the fact that this is the most law-breaking president in history. That's why we get to go after people the way, developing countries used to, political factions used to go after each other. Really, what's he been convicted of, right? And even just the goodness and badness of people. Right. And this is another place where the rubber meets the road. Human beings, because we have been forged by lineage against lineage competition, we are wired for that. Just the same way we are wired for religion. We are wired to want to know who's on the team and who isn't on the team. This is something that the West did the best job yet of getting past, and is now being uninvented. We have returned to a place where we're supposed to figure out, who are the good people and who are the people who are my enemy. Right? We are not supposed to say we are all Americans, for example, right? And we are united by that, even if we differ over policy and what the wise direction to go would be. We are Americans first, right? No. The question is who's good and who's bad, right? And, sometimes that's the question of, who's Jewish. In this case, it could be a question of who's vaccinated, right? But the point is, these things are all being handed down by the same mechanism, which is being imposed over the superior mechanism that the West, yes, it never completed the project, but the West innovated and developed, in which we had another method for figuring this stuff out, like falsification, right? Like, collaborating on a project, even if we disagree over the particulars, right? So we are being returned to a previous world without the benefit of the narrative structure or ideology having passed through the test of time and at least being valid in some sense, right? It's valid in no sense. It is, in fact, in direct conflict with reality in a way that causes people who follow it to do very rapid self-harm, right? So this is, I think this is becoming really clear. And if you are shocked by the attack on Salman Rushdie, you should be equally shocked that a different flavor of the same is taking over Western civilization and replacing all of the mechanisms that have stood the test of time. The only alternative we have to that team-based modality, that is being replaced by something in which some oracle is going to decide what you need to do, what you need to think, who you need to attack. And the fact is, there's no future in this. There's no future. We cannot play those games with the kind of weaponry at our disposal. We cannot play those games with the number of people on the planet. We cannot play those games with the amount of industrial power at our disposal. This is just a fatal proposal.
It is. And it doesn't seem to be coming from one place. One of the things that I think often now is, boy, wouldn't it be great if we had a president? Now, I don't know who could be president at the moment, who would be standing up in the various ways that such a person would need to stand up. But certainly having someone who has been MIA since before he attained the presidency, not the moment for that. And one thing that we have been observing since before COVID, which was not really observable, which couldn't be seen by many who, like us, saw the problem in the academy but weren't scientists and so couldn't see the problem within science, is science the process of science has become so market-driven and so much about money and so much about who you know, and therefore both a social and a financial process rather than a process of discovery and of understanding what is true, that it is now a game, and therefore it is gameable. And so I think I will save for another time a discussion. I wanted to talk a little bit. There are just a number of stories now of important, impressive scientists or important, impressive scientific findings on which lots of things are based, be it ocean acidification or the Alzheimer's research, where, oh, as it turns out, just flat out fraud. We just made up the data, turns out. Now, kudos in the couple of cases that I just mentioned to the whistleblowers who said, no, this is not how science works. But for each one of these things that is discovered, on which basis someone's reputation is made and therefore their career is apparently guaranteed, how many are not discovered? How many of these scientific findings that we are basing our understanding on are actually one person, one flawed human being who at some point dreamed of being a scientist, presumably with all of the best intentions, and then found themselves again instead in a social game and a financial game, and made one, then a couple, then a series of extraordinarily bad decisions and threw science overboard. And now we have a scientific record. This is far outside of COVID, but of course COVID puts this all under very sharp relief, that you can't look at and know what you're seeing. Because when are the data actually the data? We don't know. We don't know anymore. The level of fraud that we are now hearing about in science is extraordinary. And of course, that's going to be a tiny fraction of this actually going on.
A tiny fraction. I mean, in fact, it's an exact analog to the p-hacking apocalypse in psychology.
Yes.
What I mean by that, I will tell you, I was railing against p-values long before p-hacking had come to public attention. It's inevitable that you will have this development based on the fact that you have so much at stake in who succeeds in finding a pattern that they can publish.
And the process is obvious.
Right.
If you understand statistics well enough to be doing these sorts of tests, you can see how you would do it if you didn't have integrity.
Well, even inadvertently, right?
Even inadvertently, but there's
if nobody publishes the studies that come out insignificant, you have a survivor bias.
So the system can do it inadvertently.
The system can do it inadvertently, and a scrupulous person can turbocharge it.
Yes.
And the point is there any reason to think that that's limited to psychology? No. I guarantee you it will happen in every field in which statistics play a prominent role. Mm-hmm. What's more, what you're describing is inevitable based on the fact that this is, in effect, a realm of science done by the honor system. Mm-hmm. And it is not that science done by the honor system is implausible. It can be done by the honor system, but not with the system of incentives. With the system of incentives deployed the way they are, it is inevitable that people who are really good at cheating will rise rapidly, and people who learn how to coordinate across a discipline and cheat will rise rapidly. And so this is going to be an epidemic, and it in part explains how it is that our system was decapitated, because the fact is it was very feeble. It was in a compromised state based on the fact that fraud will have played a major role in bringing us to where we are.
Yes, that's all exactly right. And what a precipice, honestly. Well, what a crazy precipice to find ourselves on at.
I think one of the things that like I've said, we don't have those studies on what's going to happen with kids over long courses of time for being on hormones, just like we don't have the study about how good plants are at warfare. But the problem is once we do have those studies, if things continue how they're continuing and how they're going, one of the things they pointed at in this is that we have a major influx of kids signing up to get into these parts of colleges because they were inspired by Fauci. Like those are the people who are going to be going in and getting into these places, and like they said, there was a massive influx because of that, because they started seeing that there's almost kind of like a priesthood class that you could become if you go get into this. So it's I think it's almost kind of selecting for dark triad types.
Well, you can be a great savior. You can become a savior.
Yeah, and so that's going to get worse. The p-hacking is going to get worse, and so it's like once we do have those studies on youth hormones, we already know how they like shot down Kenneth Zucker and some other people who had some studies that didn't seem to go in line with what they wanted. By the time we do have those studies, we're not going to be able to trust them.
So I think that's kind of why one of the memes that resonates the most with people that are fed up with all of this right now, but don't quite understand why they're fed up with all of this right now, is that the Reddit soy jack meme of the guy going source, just like give me a source for that. because there's sort of this idea that there are certain that nothing should ever be based on intuition. Nothing should ever be based on what is obviously observably true, and things like the you would think that's such an absurd observation to say that like plants aren't good at warfare, and the problem is we have people now saying that we don't have any studies suggesting that putting kids on puberty blockers and then having them, if they want to change their mind, go back and go through puberty at like 19, 25 or something like that. We have no evidence to suggest that's bad. Like, okay, yeah, but that's insane. And so it feels like in the year 2035, 2040,
do
something
not
like
need
that.
studies. I do
No,
not
I don't need
studies.
studies. I know there's a growing list of things where I just tell people I don't need data. I don't need data to tell me that. Okay, like if we get the data, then we get it, and I can use it. But oh my God, why would you need data for that? It's just as absurd as saying that plants aren't good at warfare. And it feels like in the year 2030, 2035, somewhere in there, we're going to be like, hey, there's going to be like some documentary that it's going to have to be done in Chinese because that's what we're going to all be speaking after this nonsense happens. It's going to be like, it turns out we found out that like that time that America tried to drop a shitload of daffodils on Hong Kong to cripple China, it didn't work at all. So yeah, plant warfare, bad move. Now we have the data. Now we know that wasn't a good idea. If only we had seen the data before that and known it was a bad idea. If only I had known that making my kid delay puberty until they were 20 years old, if only I had known that was a bad idea. And the only thing that could possibly tell me that was a bad idea is data. Fuck off.
Yeah, it's out of control, and I've been thinking for a long time that even stuff that you wouldn't imagine is getting p-hacked, and it's going to be getting worse and worse p-hacked, and it's partially because all of this new level scientism. I love science. I mean, I just wouldn't have guessed myself that it would have gotten to this level of it being such a nightmare freak show, and the p-hacking for. I mean, that's from the start. I was saying, I remember Jonathan when I went on his channel, he kind of felt like he had to explain to people why activism and truth don't mesh. Like starting to explain to people, and it should become clearer and clearer, but it'll become clear to all of us soon enough, because a lot of the stuff comes down to what I rage on Dehlin and Larsen for, is that they scream that they're on the side of truth, and then as soon as they infantilize something, they'll get. As soon as they think they're doing good or something, they'll start p-hacking or allow whatever lie, and that's going to happen more and more and more. Like I think about something like Peterson, the James Damore thing. Peterson, they relied on this evidence from Scandinavia that showed that women, as they got more freedom across time, selected less positions in STEM. That was, and Peterson would always kind of point at, and that was something that left-wing people didn't want to find, but they were so honest they found it. Part of my belief is across the next 10, 15 years, especially as we get more and more little activists in colleges, that data, that those findings are going to be flipped and reversed around. We're going to see constant things that kind of say, we actually found out something else of that thing that you used to use as the as the thing to swat us down with. We actually found it was the other thing.
Don't believe your lying eyes.
Yeah,
it turns out women like being engineers exactly as much as men do.
We're gonna across 10 years. I mean, I almost feel like I want, the same way I save up other stuff, I want to start saving those up. We're gonna start seeing all these, like he said, anything that has to do with statistics. We're going to start seeing over time that turns out the thing that you thought was true, that kind of matched reality and shot our activistic ideas in the dick, turns out we were right. Ha ha ha. Look how nice it is when we run the institutions of knowledge and science and start running the tests ourselves.
I feel like you need to edit in the part of 21 Jump Street where the guy gets shot in the dick right there. Oh my God, you shot my dick off.
It's gonna happen. It's gonna start happening. That one will get reversed, I bet you. I could probably like go down the row and pick them out. They're gonna say, oh, because one of the things that they'll point out is that Matt Walsh even pointed out, they kind of constantly say, hey, this gender affirming care, it's to reduce suicidality. And you can say 7 years after we have the data in, it doesn't reduce suicidality. Like, what are you talking about? Like, you don't even have the results that you're claiming you got to do to get the results. Well, that'll get p-hacked. I could probably make a list of 100 of them, and we could like do a betting pool of which ones are going to get. Turns out we found out we were right on this one. And the thing is, like, honestly, is like, I bet you even somewhere in there, if we were in an honest world, maybe 1 or 2 of them would have actually gotten reversed or something like that. But there's going to be activists in the science world. I mean, that's been my argument ever since. The humanities were all taken over, but in the past 3, 4, 5 years, it was like, no, watch out STEM. And part of what Brett's saying and Heather's saying is like, we're on a precipice. So many of the things that we've shared with each other is looking like Lysenkoism, or however you say the name, Theoism. But they're going to start doing things that I have if I put my crazy, my biggest fear hat on, is I honestly think by the year 2050, we'll have seen some sort of mass death larger than the size of World War II. And it's going to be something stupid around this. If it's a famine, if it's a food crisis, if it is some sort of like, because what if some sort of thing comes out where now we really do have the dumb disease that is the thing we should have freaked out about, and we just had these guys screw it up so hard that we all just go, whatever, dudes.
The boy who tried COVID.
Yeah. Or if there's going to be some, I think in the next 30 years, we're all going to, you might not even notice. It might be like 1 million people died in Cambodia for something or another, but we're going to see some nasty thing happen. I really think that.
But like John Larsen informed me that in order for drastic action to be taken, like 50,000 specifically white people are going to have to die.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
God damn it,
So
we
the
didn't
whole
even
thing
get to John Larsen, huh?
The whole thing that
are we going to be able to? I don't know.
Oh wait, so I was going to say about pronouncing that name, because it's funny. The thing that's tripping you up is that it's a vowel sound that exists in English that you use 20,000 times a day, but that we don't have a letter for. But the Y in Lysenko is an I, like this, or roses. It's an I, so Lysenko. That's funny because we want to say lie or lee. Like people either say lie or lee, but it's actually the I vowel. But yeah, like, and you immediately know that vowel, like the I and this. But like we don't actually have a letter that goes like, what letter goes I?
That vowel's actually a hard vowel for Spanish speakers. You try to teach them the difference between.
One of the weirdest vowels I've found out, like this last week, I've been learning, like just at work when I have spare time, I've been learning the Cyrillic alphabet, like the Russian alphabet.
Yeah.
And they have a weird vowel. It's like, it looks like a half note with
it's a little B with an I. That's the vowel we're talking about. That's it.
It's like this. It's kind of like the tilde AO in Portuguese. It's like you're humming with your mouth open, basically. Is what I.
Yeah. Is there one of those over the Y in Lysenko? Or is it just how the Y is?
If you look up Lysenko, if you look up his name spelled in Russian, like I went just to make sure, but like because in Russian that second vowel is that little. Looks like a little B, a lowercase b followed by an I. That's one character. It's like, it's funny because it's 2 different characters, but that's actually just one letter in Russian. But that's an I, because Russian
kind
vowels,
of it's like a it's really fucking weird.
Well, yeah. Because the Russian, they have an E, they have an E, they have an U.
It's almost like you're saying an E or an E, but you're shaping your mouth like you're trying to make an L sound. I don't know.
It pops up a lot at the end of words like nui, like centralny, and so like muy, like so. I think that's what you're hearing. It gets smashed into a diphthong a lot. Because like the word for my is like muy, which is like mo this thing. I think I might be getting it's been a long time. But yeah,
I don't know. I haven't learned any words yet. I'm just learning the alphabet.
Dude, it's so useful because if you can read Cyrillic, then you can read Mongolian and Kazakh.
I've been actually, like, as Chris would say, autistic over it this last week. I've been like,
is that your first new script? Like your first non-Latin script you're learning?
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
I was like, at some point in my life, I got to be able to read Crime and Punishment in Russian. That's what I want to do. That's my goal. So, hell yeah, man. This is fun. This is like a puzzle to figure out. So I spent I learned.
I had enough puzzle just trying to figure out their names in that.
Yeah. No.
Well, see, that's the thing. When you learn Cyrillic, if you learn Cyrillic, when you read the names in English, like once you get the concordance down, how you transliterate Cyrillic to English, then it makes sense.
Well, so the names were always cool to me. Once I got kind of used to it, because I read 5 of the Dostoevsky books, and then I just finished Anna Karenina, and I'm in the middle of, well, at the beginning of War and Peace.
I haven't read any Tolstoy all the way through.
And so Anna Karenina is fucking awesome. But
really?
Yeah, I loved it. But Tolstoy's almost easier to read than Dostoevsky, I think, but I've only read one of his books. The names, I enjoyed the names because it's just, they feel cool to say. So I would say the names to myself. And then I learned this Cyrillic alphabet, got kind of the gist of how it works. So I just, at work, when I had free time, I just remembered all of the names from all the Dostoevsky books that I could, and just tried to write them in the Cyrillic alphabet. And I got to where I could write them down pretty well. It's like fun. It feels like a puzzle.
No, because I learned Russian. I took 1 year of Russian in the 7th grade. And for me, there was this whole revelation of oh, wait, you can spell things how they sound? Other languages, And
that was the best part about Portuguese. Portuguese is so perfectly phonetic that I don't understand. I don't know how spelling bees.
Goofy.
Well, I don't know how spelling bees even work in Brazil.
No, there's no sense to having them.
There wouldn't be, because there's no I could win a spelling bee, and I only spoke Portuguese for 2 years and when I lived there,
Just that thing where in Russian, they have a vowel that goes eh, and they have a vowel that goes I, and they have a vowel that goes e, and they have a vowel that actually they don't have a vowel that goes but that's one thing that's so messed up with English, is that the schwa, it's called the schwa, but the vowel it's the most basic vowel to all language. It's the most common sound in English, but there's not actually there's not a letter that goes And in fact, every vowel and combination of vowels is pronounced somewhere in English.
Well, and there are some weird rules. So there's some weird rules in the Cyrillic alphabet, like the ski. A lot of names end in ski, like Dostoevsky ends in ski, and that E sound is always the weird little backwards N or E, followed by the weird little backwards N with the thing.
No, that's an ikratkoya. What that is, that's the iotizer.
Yeah, but it's 2 of them together. It's the E followed by the ikratkoya. It's 2 of them.
It'll make sense. That'll make sense to you eventually, because the backwards N is just the E, and that's that E vowel, that long thing. The ikratkoya is when you pull it back to like you're making a ya, then the E. So that's why there's 2 letters there. It's goofy, but it'll make sense eventually.
Yeah,
the other weird one with Russian is the disappearing V's. V's at the end of words are F's. So in Russian it's spelled Smirnov, but you pronounce it Smirnov.
Yeah. No, I've noticed it. But the thing is, it's consistent in its rules. Portuguese had its rules, and it obeyed them. English has more exceptions than it has rules. And I think English is a beautiful language in a lot of ways. It's a very poetic language because it has more words than almost any other language by quite a bit. But anyway,
I heard a guy say that Arabic has more, but I don't know.
I don't know. I just know English has a shitload more than most other.
And also English has the greatest, by far the largest literary canon to draw from.
I thought English was larger because it borrowed from so many other languages.
Well, that's part of it. Is that
But it also
people should turn this off and just watch The Adventure of English. It's an 8-part BBC series that's available on YouTube from 25 years ago, called The Adventure of English, and it tells the story of English from 500 AD to the present, and it's The Adventure of English. It tells the story as though English is the character in a story. It's so brilliant. Anybody
Did you watch
language should watch it.
You watched that video I sent you of that guy who taught you how to read French too, right?
Oh yeah,
you can almost read it from English just with a couple little twists that I didn't even realize.
Well, one of the things I like about English is because I'm big into the whole songwriting thing and making songs beautiful. Is I remember one of my beefs with Brazilian music when I went there was that it feels like in Latin-based languages like that, rhyming is just too easy.
Yeah.
Because all verbs rhyme with themselves.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It felt like it lent to very lazy songwriting. And I didn't get into the more underground Brazilian music. I mostly just heard their mainstream stuff, so I'm sure there's a lot of good stuff.
So you know where that's because in Spanish has the same thing where it's like because rhyming is too easy, but then where the clever stuff is in double entendre. That's the thing. Like with a lot of Portuguese music, like there's a guy, what's his name, King Barreiros. He's this famous guy from Portugal, where all of his songs are just innocent sound. It's all double entendre. Like he's got a whole song that's all about how he's got a neighbor whose husband left her, and now she has a garage that she lets him use. And
do they have something
in
similar
like
to?
In English, the joke doesn't work, but in Portuguese, the joke is obvious and it's all wonderful. And anyway,
do they have something similar to Arburles?
It's not the
Arburliar.
I don't know if there's like a direct equivalent. I just know that it seems like wordplay is a much bigger thing in Portuguese music than it is in English.
It's bigger in Spanish too, and it's because of those Arburles, and those do get intense.
Well, I know, like one thing, because I'm not quite that good at Portuguese, and especially Portuguese slang. But like Jorginho, there's a popular song where like, because there's a song about Da Vinci, because Da Vinci, the guy, also sounds like Da Vinci, which means give me 20, which is slang for do you have any marijuana for me? You know, like, and so like there's this whole like, and
so that was one of the cool.
I guess it works just like Abreu. I guess it's the same thing. I just don't know if they have a name for it.
Well, this is a. Well, I'll show you.
So I didn't hear very much good Brazilian music while I was there, but one of the things I loved about Brazil is the Brazilians I met that were into music were into good music. Like that's how I got. I'm not even kidding you. I got introduced to the Arctic Monkeys in Brazil.
Wow.
I hadn't ever listened to because I had heard of them, but then this girl we were teaching, she was like, "Hey, you ever hear of the Arctic Monkeys?" I was like, "Yeah, I haven't listened to it." And so she just pulls out her guitar and sings "Suck It and See" for us, and we're like, "Oh my god, I need to listen to them." And then through there, I got into this. Like all of these guys, they have really good taste in American music.
I wish I could. How did she say Arctic Monkeys?
This is
Arctic Monkeys. Já vi falar do Arctic Monkeys.
This is an arbor, and it's loaded with it. Spanish is loaded with it, and it's partially because they have each syllable has a consonant to a vowel, consonant to a vowel, consonant to a vowel. Yeah. So you can swap up words infinitely like this, and this is where they get really intense. Because like this word here, mecos tomas, is you eat boogers, and mecos tomas is that costed me more. But there's so many of these you couldn't even start to count them. There's just a billion of them, and there's even some that are kind of three. Like you could put like a costomas in like together or something like that. There's just infinite wordplay that way. So I don't know if we run out of times because unless you guys want to try to take on.
We're getting close to 3 hours.
Yeah.
I gotta feed my cat.
This is the one that because he keeps once again saying that he wants feedback and pushback.
Yeah, he wants the response video.
And that's why I say like maybe we got to do it in one where we try to stay as nice as possible and not do that. But the truth of it is he'll still just shoot it down and call it racist, sexist, isophobe if he even responds or answers.
He probably won't respond.
Because he keeps saying and keeps putting up there, people saying, "Whoa, no problem, Larsen." The problem is we did try to talk to him. The way he just kind of casually says, "Yeah, I'll talk to you. Oh yeah, I'll respond to anything. Let me get your opinion. It'll be great." No, and if you do get his attention, he'll just do the call you an istophobe thing. But one of my things here, I could just say in a couple seconds, he says, "What happens when the dog catches the car?" And he's talking about the right wing. The same complaint, the same thing that we've been talking about, or I've mentioned, the Mencius Moldbug thing is that when the right wing gets power, they stupidly just use the power, and then that gets everybody pissed off, and they lose the power again real quick. But when the left wing gets power, they use that power to try to get more power. He says, "What happens when the dog catches a car?" He's talking about when that conservative SCOTUS got to the point where they could just suddenly take on stare decisis and all these things that were obviously. They complain, "Oh, how dare you go against stare decisis?" But the things were obviously constitutionally crap from the beginning. Even Ruth Bader Ginsburg said so. But what do they do when they've catch the car? But That's been my question to you the whole time, Larsen. Like what happened? Like the left wing caught the car. They caught the institutions, and that's the main thing we're picking at. And they turn those institutions into crap, and they're going to turn them into more mush. And that's all I've been trying to get you guys to stop and look at, because there's half of me that's like, you're part of it. And the same question we asked earlier, is he ignorant? Is he stupid or lying? And there's a level of it with both Larsen and Dehlin that we're always still kind of questioning that. And I think there's a level both of it. I think you're willing to lie at some level, and I think you're completely ignorant at another level that you don't understand.
Are we
just
going
how
to say that thing where he says, "I don't know of anybody in academia that's seriously discussing Marx"?
Yeah, that's what he said. And I had some
So
other
like,
videos.
let's save that for
up.
next time. So like, yeah, we'll pull up the stuff. It's like I heard that, and I had to pause it. You know, because like
You
that is one of
cannot.
those. Like that's one of those statements. Like there are no transitional fossils, where it's like, no, that you never looked. Like that's how I can tell you never even tried to look.
Yeah, you don't know what's going on there. You have no idea what's going on there, and or maybe you want to bury your head under the carpet or something like that. And I showed you some other videos of these guys, and I don't know if you guys bother listening to them, but they're just stupidity. But you can find 1,000,001 YouTube videos of people in the humanities departments talking about their degrees and their PhDs and all their stuff, and all they talk about is Marxism or different ideas from famous theorists who were out and out Marxists. That's all there is to it. Like I have this other video of this when one of the ladies is talking about neo-feudalism, and he does this whole setup talking about neo-feudalism and all these ideas. And I'm like, Larsen, you're talking about ideas. Like you're saying the way the society's going right now is coming right out of Marxist theorists, this neo-feudalism.
Like I had to explain to my little sister, you know, because she got upset me. She's like, "Why do you think that I'm into Marx?" I'm like, "Because you talked about late capitalism."
Yeah, you use the words.
You're using the word like that. That concept only makes sense in the framework of Marxism.
Why do you think I'm into Jesus? Well, you keep talking about being saved and how
it's exactly what it is.
Exactly. Yeah. Where it's like, you keep spouting their ideas.
Because they're down the line a little bit of it or something, they think that you're talking about a socialist society. You complain about anything that gets privatized. You think if anything has a problem, any sort of cronyism, the problem with that cronyism is the capitalist side of it, not the government side of it. And because we all can agree on some of those problems with cronyism and that sort of deal, but we disagree on what the mechanism or what the main thing going on there is. But your whole push is more centralized everything. Everything you do is centralized.
I think there's also a huge problem of massification. Our civilizations are growing and interconnecting and creating these Leviathan-like bureaucracies and organizations that incentivize a leftward drift. This is Robert Conquest's laws. And so I think that as our society continues to see kind of managerialism as the only solution, as it continues to see larger, more centralized organizations as the only way forward, leftism will continue to grow in power. Because while these things initially seemed like enemies, I think if you look at Sam Francis's Leviathan and His Enemies, he makes a great case for why kind of that leftist reaction to the managerial state in the 60s was actually just the left telling the managerial state that it wasn't moving fast enough. They were telling the managerial class that they weren't pushing their priorities fast enough. They weren't fulfilling their promises fast enough. And so the left misunderstood the managers as enemies and fought against them as enemies because they felt like they weren't actually doing that. But all the managers were doing is they were slowing the progress enough to make sure that it didn't shatter the system. They needed to make sure that while they were acquiring power, they weren't destroying kind of the stock that they were feeding on. And so they needed to make sure that they weren't they weren't rattling the people that they were kind of duping so much that they might notice the change. The left wanted it to all happen right now. And so they saw those people as enemies. But I think really at the end of the day, the left and kind of these large bureaucracies, these large corporations, these large government and non-government entities, they're far more friends than they are enemies.
He constantly talks about the people being the ones who are the owners of their means of labor. He says that all the time. He brings up the neo-feudalism stuff. And then he also talks about we need to use less, and almost kind of become different beings, become
So
different human beings. I mean, that's just pure Marxism crap.
Well,
So
because
steel
and
man
that's
this
when
for
he says
me.
when like nobody's talking about Marx in the human or like in academia, and that's things like at this point, I think it's fair to say that when it comes to the humanities, there's either talking about Marx or talking around Marx, and
Yeah.
that's all that's left now.
I don't know how you, because I showed you guys these guys talking about film theory, and if you listen to the whole entire hour of it, it's just a giant freaking stupid rant on like anti-capitalism through Althusser, through Zizek, who is a self-proclaimed Marxist. Everybody knows like the
I'm
famous.
not a Marxist.
Yeah, well, he doesn't even say that. He says, "Yes, I'm a Marxist," but
I'm a Hegelian Marxist. I can't do this.
I'm more Hegelian. He's a Marxist. But
that guy does
so
have a great voice.
you cannot just say, "Hey, college, I'd like to become an expert in film." Oh, you just told us you'd like to become an expert in Marxism, or you're not getting a degree through us.
So steelman this for me as best you can. You're talking about Larsen, how he'll talk about how the people should own the means of production or whatever. What's the steelman for that? Because I don't. To me, that always sounds like obviously the means of production. If you work at McDonald's, is the building, the restaurant, the grill, all of that shit. And so they're saying that should be owned by the people.
The steelman is that people should get fair and commensurate compensation for their labor.
Like sure, but that's not what he's saying.
But yeah, no,
like
exactly.
he's saying,
I think it's
a lot of these
beyond
people are
that.
saying
It's
you should
people should
earn
get-
all of your labor value. Like there should be no surplus labor. And to me, my thought is always like, do you think that the means of production just come out of nowhere? You think that if all of the capitalists are gone, they'll just still be there, and you guys can just start grilling burgers, and you can earn the entire $7 of a Big Mac rather than like $2?
The means of production come from the same place as the hamburgers and hot dog buns. It's from the store.
Yeah, I always thought and anytime I hear this, I'm like, there has to be a better argument than what I've heard for this many people to be convinced of it. But I think I'm just lending people too much benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, I really think it just comes down to that visceral, like primate fairness thing, where it's like everybody should be treated well,
and they're assumed that they're currently,
and that's extremely compelling.
They
and when
assume that they're
like, "Oh, I'm on the
currently
side of people that believes everybody should be treated well."
Yeah, and there's some level that it works because they assume in some sort of level they're currently being mistreated.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that's kind of got to be part of it. But
no, it is. Yeah. No, I remember. I mean, it's been a few years now. It's been, more than 5 years. But like, because I remember when my sister said specifically that, she was oppressed, and I'm like, "How are you oppressed?" And the first thing she said is, "My student loans."
Oh God.
Well, one of the things that drives me crazy about Larsen is we know that
you made a very stupid purchase, and now you're claiming that as oppression.
I just kind of wonder where it's like, because like just imagine like somebody lands in West Africa in 1685.
Well,
it says, "I got a deal for you. I'm gonna give you an education, and then you're gonna have a high-paying job in public health. But we're gonna loan you $100,000. You have to pay back." And they're like, "No, that's slavery. I recognize that."
Well, but so Larsen tries to make the argument. I don't know if it's on this episode or the other that we should just be funding free education all the way through for everybody because he's just gonna. He has these long winding sayings. I'm the super rational guy to just land on all the same basic lefty talking points.
Yeah,
but,
we can have universal free education the same way that Brazil has free universal health care.
Yeah,
you can get a Band-Aid and aspirin. Everybody gets a Band-Aid and aspirin. You can get all the Band-Aids and aspirins you'll ever fucking need. But God help you if you need anything complex.
Yeah, and we also have the problem with that we already know that some of that education they're getting is just more Marxist theorists just producing, the elite overproduction is
it's not even a Band-Aid. It's just telling you that the Band-Aid is oppressive.
Yeah.
The Band-Aid companies have monopolized the production of Band-Aids.
Yeah, so that's it. I mean, it's just basically an argument that we should get rid of student loans. But I've always wondered about like him too. Like, what's his freaking deal? We know that he's some sort of project manager at
Which
some
is what
company
is that?
and has always made six figures,
Like,
which is
what
basically
degree?
just.
Where do you go to school to learn project management? Which field of academia do you come out the other end and you're qualified as a project manager?
Well, if you wanna learn a lot about project manager, study Dilbert, because almost all of Dilbert's about project manager stuff. But the project manager,
middle management, because middle management is enticing to just the worst type of people.
Yeah, it's middle management is what it is. It's middle management, and yeah, like
middle management is enticing to the type of person who is not quite competent at their job, but just competent enough to know that they're incompetent and therefore be really angry about it.
I highly, because Scott Adams is so good at just ripping this stuff apart, and if you've only just been following his political stuff the past couple of years, you're missing out because all of this stuff is always best stuff has been just ripping.
Yeah, I've heard I need to check it out.
Project manager, like his book on like the weasels and the weaseling that they do, and the whole thing's about middle management bullshit. And most of Dilbert is ripping on both the corporate and being dipshits to the middle management and back. But it is a bunch of crap, but the truth of the matter is that the same thing with a bunch of my other lefty friends who I can look at every single one of their jobs. Like I'll throw them under the bus. Like my band right now, we talking there. I'm the only guy who says, yeah, I'm pro-capitalism. Just I don't have any embarrassment of saying I'm pro-capitalism. That makes me some sort of pariah. All the rest of them, what do you work in? You work in real estate and investment, 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 and you all have
Is the nurse
pretty
not
good.
a nurse anymore?
No, he's working as a. He's not the worst. Like he's not going to be against capitalism, but he just doesn't. He doesn't even care enough to say the other way. But he now works with his wife as a surveyor, and they go around surveying for land for developers to develop land. He works actually at my work where we're developing a bunch of places.
Is he doing better than he was in nursing?
Yeah, they have their own business going on with that because there's all these like houses. But he only works 1 day a week in nursing to keep the benefits.
Amazing.
And they go and do that, and then the other guy just does investments, and then they all talk about fourth stage capitalism, communism, all that sorts of stuff too, and flipping it. And they're not even like the worst of it. And then we meet all their friends who are very smart people like John Larsen, and they all buy into wokeism just the same, so much so that I can't. It's getting to a point where I'm just going to say screw it, because I'm going to change the name of this to Porch Time, and then just start advertising it out or whatever, because I'm tired of. I'm not even worried about it anymore. But they do all the same stuff where you just kind of stop and look at them like, what game are you guys playing? Like you're against you in a weird way. Like I don't even understand what you're doing.
No, we all got to devolve into. So I have this friend who he's the bassist that I play with a lot, and we've been like best friends since like high school. And his name is Mick, and it's funny because we always, anytime we have a party with a lot of people, we always talk about how it's not a party until Mick is yelling at some young socialist about Ayn Rand drunkenly, and that's like what we've all turned into at this point. Like I'm always.
That's good. It's good though.
Yeah,
good
no, I'm
always
always yelling about something at some fucking party.
There's some sort of level with all of them though. That my only question is, why do you hate you? Like, why do you hate you so much? You are all doing the shibboleth stuff. You're all doing the things of showing that you're on the proper team, which I don't even know what sort of team is. You claim to be against neoliberals. You guys are squarely neoliberals. You all get your money through some sort of, the same capitalist processes that we all do. You're all perfectly happy with your gadgets and gears. You're not alienated from your work, or you're able to do your art in your free time and all that sort of stuff. Like,
so I guess I could see with, the typical criticism of like the millennial socialist is that, oh yeah, you're tweeting out your complaints with capitalism on an iPhone. I can kind of understand the whole, like, okay, look, I'm in this capitalist system and therefore I have to operate, like I have to function in this system. So yeah, I'm going to use phones or whatever. But at some degree, like seems to cross a line, and I feel like real estate crosses that line by a lot, because all of a sudden you're into property rights.
Yeah,
Did you
and
see
they're
the South
real
Park
estate
special,
or
Jared?
investment. They work in investment, which is all investment in real estate itself.
Did either of you guys see the South Park special about when Cartman's mom goes into real estate?
Yeah. And Cartman.
Okay, just make sure, because yeah, because
they
like,
all
they
have
say,
to
like,
take those pictures and
yeah,
lean back.
like, can you smile in a photograph with your back arched?
Yeah. And I work in the world of selling to those parks, to these types of people who the mountain people, the city people coming to buy bottled water, bottled water, bottled water, bottled water, Pilates, bottled water. That world is real. It is real. These guys are those guys, because the only other thing that Matt and Trey should have put in there is that fourth stage capitalism, as they were buying those houses.
That would have been great.
Because that's really what's going on, and that's really who John Larsen is. That's who he is. You're somebody who's gotten to the level of privilege to be a guy who goes and buys some ranch in Oregon as an overweight person to scream at the rest of us for socialism. I don't even know like what he's talking about, saying that like you can't keep your money for your kids or any sort of thing like that. What he's gonna go send it all off to the IRS when he dies? Like, come on.
That's seriously like half of his rant, and it's not this one, it's the next one, I think, where he goes off on like leaving your kids anything. I don't think I got a reply to it. I commented on it. I'll check.
I can't. Well, maybe if I change when we change the name, I can comment on it because it won't have my name on it again. But he knows my name, so he won't answer me now, or he'll block me. It's so backwards thinking, and they're just like a level of like they try to explain stuff and they don't explain anything. Like I said the other day, it's like it's low resolution. They don't give you the whole story. They just give you the side that they kind of want you to see, and they think the answer is just we become different types of humans, and we centralize everything. And one of the things I pointed out while Jonathan Pageau, I pulled out that clip from him, is that if you kind of get into the Hegel stuff and all that sort of deal, and there's a level of like Christianity feels like Hegelianism too, because they're talking about getting to this utopia. But one of the things Jonathan Pageau points in is like, but that utopia is after the story. It's after the story. It's not going to happen here. It's after. And so you got to do it here. Like here, you got to be what we are here, and there's something with the Marxist utopians that it's, no, we're going to make the utopia happen here. And we're going to just ruin everything doing it again and again and again and again. And why it appeals to donks like John Larsen. Like it's so upsetting to me. I wouldn't be rude to him if he hadn't been rude to me this way. I would be direct with him, like stop and look. That's been mostly the thing with him and Dehlin, has been look at you, stop and look at you.
I was very patient with Dehlin for a very long time.
Yeah.
It just got ridiculous.
And well, why don't you stop and look at yourself? I do. I mean, this whole past 4 or 5 days I've been making a case against atheism. I'm an atheist.
Yeah.
So
that's it. We're all atheists going, leave church alone. Leave church alone.
It's just you want us to reconcile with the people you want us to. We're doing the reconciling, but we're going to do it with the ones that we see worth reconciling with.
I think
Mormon church ain't true. Leave them alone. It's not true. Leave them alone. It's not true.
My core principle that I always talk about is just leave me the fuck alone. Okay.
Yeah.
But it extends to other people. Okay. Also leave them alone. Because
I would love to leave you alone, Larsen.
If you don't leave them alone, then they'll stop leaving everybody else alone. And that includes me. So just fuck off.
Yeah.
Well, because this is the other thing that makes me so crazy is that, like, just imagine I'm trapped with the transgender person, and I don't mean trapped, or I'm just saying, like, just for whatever reason I'm with a person. The last thing I want to talk about is, I mean, just says like, are you into movies? Do you like bourbon? Like, do you play guitar? Who's your favorite band? Like.
I know 3-4 transgender people in my actual life, and that's all the conversation's ever been. And they're not activists. John Larsen and Dehlin are activists. The mountain people saying bottled water are the activists. The Herlihy, the people standing next to the Herlihy boys. But like, the very smart people.
when you walk up and you've got the tag and you've got your pronouns listed on the tag, and I'm like, well, god damn it, now you've made it weird.
Fuck off.
You know, like, yeah, just.
And then when you're stuck in the same room and suddenly there pops up Dehlin and Larsen to yell at you to have empathy at them the whole time. Let's try to. It's like one of those escape rooms, and it's you and a transgender person, and we try it once with just you and the transgender person, and then we go to another escape room and we try it again, but this time we have John Dehlin and Larsen standing there yelling "Have empathy" the whole time that you're trying to figure out the escape room, and we see.
Well, we've already seen that. We've seen that. That was basically what the Rod Meldrum interview was like an ex-Mormon audience wanting to hear about this insane Heartland model, and like we're working together with Rod Meldrum to get this idea across, and then there's John Dehlin in the middle of it, like, I'm super uncomfortable right now, and I'd like just to take a moment to all of us go around and just completely disavow racism. Like, you mean that you're gonna look into a camera and ask for virtue points for disavowing the most demonized thing in this century, you fucking idiot. Like,
well, no, so it's iron law brave. They don't want you to disavow racism.
No, he wanted Rod Meldrum to be like, no, I don't.
I disavow me. I disavow me. Is that good, John Dehlin? I disavow me.
In that situation,
racism.
He either looks good or Rod Meldrum says, I don't disavow racism. It was a trap. And John Dehlin is not good at those traps, but he tried it a bunch on Rod Meldrum, because if I were in Rod Meldrum's shoes, and he would have been like, can we all disavow white supremacy? I'd have been like, fuck off. Like, I don't need to disavow white supremacy because I have shown zero white supremacy.
So that's what's happening there. And I mean, it was the same one. Oh, we should have pulled that up, of the Thunderfoot video that Jonathan found. Flip and I watched it forever ago, surely, but it was good to rewatch it. But he was complaining about those atheist conventions, that they were being forced to sign these kind of HR-ish type papers, atheist conventions, that I will not sexually assault. And there was people like Thunderfoot saying, I'm not signing a paper that I will not sexually assault. Like that's demeaning to me in this way, because
you know who would sign the paper that says I promise to pinky promise to never rape anyone? A rapist.
Exactly, and that was their point.
Wait a minute, you were a rapist? It turns out you're also willing to lie? That's insane.
Like every time you walk into the grocery store, they stop you like, sign this paper saying you won't shoplift, and you're like, oh,
you won't shoplift.
Right.
Fuck,
but then each time you go,
but I'm gone now.
Because this is one of the point of those papers, is that each convention, it got a little longer. So sooner or later you're going back to the church, and it's, I will not shoplift. I will also not rape. I will also not punt a puppy. No puppy punting in here. And the line that just gets longer and longer. And if you don't want to sign it, you want to punt a puppy. And but that's what the essence of this whole entire movement is. It's broken into corporate risk-averse America, to the religions and everything, is that we got to have the John Larsen and Dehlin there standing there next to screaming. Like, so at a corporate level, we're all trying to figure out how to do escape room stuff, but we got to have these guys standing there screaming at us to have empathy too, while we're figuring out the process that we're all there to try to do. The corporate HR is just a big, larger level of that, and what the universities are churning out are the commissars to do all that sort of stuff, and to waste the money and become wasteful and make everybody less productive and less able to get along with each other. And no, none of y'all are helping. You ain't helping nothing. I just wonder, like, Larsen's a smart enough guy. Dehlin's a smart enough guy. So many of these people going through the colleges, they're smart enough people. Like, what would be going on in this world right now if we really were all just kind of like focused? Like, did we have to come up with this crap because there wasn't enough for us to do? Or would there be a world where we all did figure out something positive to do? Like, could that have really happened? I don't know.
Yeah. I know that thing, like, it's the same question like we always have. It's like, because, you know, like, are Larsen and Dehlin dumb? Well, no, because just like our faithful Mormon uncles dumb? Like, in my case, no, they're all super duper brilliant.
Yeah.
But
I think Larsen and Dehlin are smart. They're just being dumb.
Exactly. No, that thing, like, my uncle is super faithful, and it's funny because, like, you know, he's like got an engineer's brain. You know, he's like just one of the most naturally, technically brilliant people I've ever met. but like sometimes he just says stuff about church, and I'm like, holy shit! Like, I have that moment, where it's almost like like when you're just having a normal conversation with somebody, and they talk as though ghosts are real, and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
wow, that's right. Some people believe that.
It is funny. Like, people are very comfortable at work telling me that ghosts are real and that dowsing rods work and shit like that. I think that Larsen is fairly smart. I think that Dehlin is, as somebody once described it to me, the ultimate midwit.
That's it. Yeah,
Because
I mean, I have said a million times is that Dehlin has never expressed an original thought.
I know. But midwit's smart though. Midwit's like
midwit's
the general
average.
idea of the concept of midwit. Yeah, well, that's technically average. Yeah. Technically, yeah. But the average concept of midwit is like 110-ish, so it's a little bit above. But John Larsen, because John Larsen
is
good
smarter
at
than
putting
John
words
Dehlin.
together. Yeah,
but
still,
John Dehlin,
I think
so. Here's my pitch for John Dehlin not being that smart, and it's the whole thing with Kwaku, where he had that whole podcast where he was basically saying that Kwaku is not black. That was one of my favorite things he's ever done, because, and the reason that makes me think he's not that intelligent is because, like, if I wanted to infiltrate like woke crowds, if I wanted to take wokeness and use it to my advantage, there's just no way in hell I would be dumb enough to make the whole like, oh, the church likes Kwaku because he doesn't act black. He's basically a white guy.
Oh man, it's so terrible. But
So
I'm not arguing with you that
he tries to use wokeness to further his own stuff, but he's not very good at it, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, because he always gets himself tripped up in the same deal and stuff. But at the same time, too, not many people trying to toe that line, although they're all midwits, are good at walking the line on both those sides. But one of the things that's been frustrating and irritating to me over the time is thinking that John Larsen was somewhat smart, and over time just kind of being like, maybe he's not, like maybe he's just really, because he's good at putting words together. He's good at weaving a story. He's good. Like every time he starts getting in his podcast and he starts like setting up his chess pieces to say what he's going to talk about. He was good at weaving stories. He's good at podcasting, got people to listen to him and all that sorts of stuff. He's good at talking and sounding like that voice. But his just conclusions, his political conclusions and his, I don't know, the way he openly, I remember I brought it up before, but Tal Bachman like one time just ripped into him because Tal Bachman's, he helps write for, what's his name, Stein, Mark Stein.
Oh, yeah?
He's that guy who fills in for Tucker Carlson when Tucker Carlson's on vacation. Tal Bachman writes for his website now. Tal Bachman's a pretty conservative dude. And I remember Tal Bachman ripped into Larsen one time for his crap warmed over Marxist stuff, because he was all good, and then he started like doing this John Larsen podcast, Post Mormon Stories, and then immediately switched to political. And he immediately started, I think at first he was even more brazenly willing to state his position on being socialist Marxist, and just right out of the gates, like he tried to like set things up, like he tried to set up his chessboard of saying like, this is how I view the world, that all politics is power and all money is power and all that. And Tal Bachman just said, this is the biggest load of shit I ever read in my life. And I remember Larsen got pissed, and that's why Larsen's not on Facebook. That fight.
Oh.
That fight was
I didn't realize. I was looking for him.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I think Facebook just brings us together and doesn't make us understand each other and see each other. It makes us hate each other. And that's the day he quit Facebook. And gave his big announcement, like, I'm out of here, guys. Peace. I see you out. And it was after Tal had called him a moron. And he barely ever gets pushback because he avoids pushback, even though he claims he wants it. And it's like when he gets the pushback, he doesn't seem to stop and reevaluate any of it. He's just locked into whatever his political religion is now. But that's part of the reason. That's part of what I've been pointing at. And I mean, from trying to talk about the atheism stuff, I've been saying all along is that they're behind. They're behind in this because they don't listen. The whole entire side, it's just the nature of the universe. If you're the side that won't listen and won't talk, you're going to get weak. You're going to get weak. And it's like you just watch them do it. And strangely enough, like I see over time, like you guys are turning yourselves into weaklings against even religious Christian types. You're getting weak because they're willing to talk and interact and sharpen their knives, and you guys aren't. And you're getting behind on what the arguments are. And that's why you're coming out with 2003 atheism podcasts, in 2022.
All righty.
Anything else?
I think we covered that one.
Beat the dead horse.
I feel bad.
Yeah.
I didn't find a good Melly Baby song to end this.
I got one sent by Christopher from Before the Crow's Nest. We want one last one before we go.
That's
somebody listens to us sent one in to see what we thought about it.
Oh, yeah, Chris is great.
He told me it's Christopher. Got to be different than me. I'm Chris.
You're Chris. He's Christopher. What did he send us?
One for us to guess. Hold on.
Oh,
we're getting submissions now.
Yeah, I'll give you one.
This is a submission.
It's a bass. She's good.
I don't know. Glasses.
I haven't listened to this either. This time I get to guess too. I don't know.
I'm guessing good because.
And it says duet me, so she probably means she's like in time or something.
Duet me.
That's when
I'm guessing. Yeah, I'm guessing competent. Good.
Me too. I'm gonna go 807 likes. She's good.
Yeah.
Well, she's playing bass. Nobody plays. Anyway.
It'd be 40 million if she wasn't good. And
I wanted to send her a Spectre Media Rule Number 2 shirt. Do you think she could wear that? Would that be allowed? Maybe. Do you remember that one? Spectre Media. You know that's a YouTube channel, but it's all about recording music, and he's got all these rules, and he makes T-shirts for him. And rule number 2 is your bass player is a useless cunt.
That was so Guitar Hero was big when I was in high school, and one of my favorite things, I didn't get super dig into it like everybody else did, but I saw my friend, like, they were playing it and they were showing off, I could do 100% on Through the Fire and Flames or whatever, and on the loading screen on the way it has these tips for being in a band, and one of them was you have to have a good mini fridge for your practice space. It's more important than a bassist.
So I always made a joke. I've made this joke in my band. The bassist, he and I go back forever, and he's the coolest one in there as far as like not being a weirdo on the Wokies. The rest of them, they're cool. They're just kind of going along how people go along, you know. But I always tell the joke. I say there was a band and they were sitting there playing and they were going to break up because they're about done, and the lead singer's just sitting there playing. And he's like, all right, screw these guys. I don't need to play with them anymore. I've been around them forever and I never need them. I write the songs anyway. And the guitarist was sitting there saying, oh man, these guys, it'll be so good to be done with them. They don't even play anything that's that difficult. I could play stuff that's way better than this, but I've just been holding back because I'm so happy to get away from these guys. And the drummer's just saying, man, I want to go join a jazz group. I'm tired of this stuff. I'm so sick of this pop music. I don't even care anymore. Nobody even pays me any attention, all that stuff. I'm done with this. And the bass player is sitting there and he's thinking 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 3 3 3 3 3 3 1 1 1 1 1 1 3 3 3 3 3 3 3 1 1 1.
The ultimate. I'm pushing so hard for Mark Hoppus to become a meme.
I've noticed that. See, I had because I was never into that band. I guess I was a little older when they became a big hit, and I had a soft spot for Mark Hoppus because the only time I ever knew him as anything as a Mark Hoppus is that he appears in the They Might Be Giants documentary as a fan of They Might Be Giants.
Oh,
you know, and I'm not
he
sure.
He definitely seems like the coolest guy out of
that's
for sure.
And it seems like, as far as I can tell, as far as the songwriting goes, if I can tell, if they follow Beatles rules and it's like, you write it, you sing it, I feel like between the two of them, he had more of a soul, but that's about it. That's everything
Sometimes. So Tom DeLonge, I've had more respect for Tom DeLonge lately because he has this weird, shitty voice, but he figured out exactly how to use it because his songs are uncoverable. Go try to look up songs of covers of Blink-182. They don't sound good. I was really excited when Matt Skiba joined the band because I was like, I love Alkaline Trio. I would love to hear him.
Oh, is that who's that? Wait, so who's Matt Skiba?
He's Matt Skiba. He's from Alkaline Trio. He's the new Tom DeLonge in Blink-182.
Oh, interesting. Man, it's funny how that works because the only reason I know about Alkaline Trio, because I never listened to them, but I knew them because their drummer is Mike Fumlum. I don't know how you say his name. Because he was in a band that I loved in the 90s. He was the drummer of the Smoking Popes.
Oh.
Which, talking about great vocalists, Smoking Popes are fun because it was pop punk rock music but the lead singer did everything in a crooner style.
Mm.
So it was really fun.
Like Richard Cheese stuff.
But I will say,
it wasn't that ridiculous. It wasn't hokey. It wasn't that gimmicky. It was really a lot more of just the aesthetic of just long, drawn out, like I'm gonna feel this way, but with the da 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 da. Yeah, that was good stuff.
I'll say that my respect for Mark Hoppus is that he doesn't pretend to be something that he isn't, because I remember watching this thing where, like, I think Tom DeLonge is more the songwriting powerhouse, and Travis Barker is a spectacular drummer, and they're interviewing Travis Barker about how did you do this? It doesn't really make sense for the drummer in a pop punk band to be decent. And he's like, well, when I was learning drums, my dad taught me that, look, you got to get really good. And if you want to get really good, you got to learn even all of these styles that you don't really care to learn. You got to learn blues, jazz, country, all of these different styles. And that was Travis Barker explaining why he's good. And then he's doing all these crazy different riffs and stuff and switching in between genres. And then Mark Hoppus is standing there and he's just like, man, I can barely play my instrument sometimes.
Yeah, I always thought.
Was it good?
Oh yeah, good. Yeah, we'll go with good.
All right.
I feel like that's probably a specific song. She might be nailing it. I don't know. Her tone is great.
It's good tone. She's even.
Yeah.
It schools out for summer.
Practicing. Oh, but no, yeah. No, she should keep playing bass.
Yeah. No, and I really like the tone of that bass. Especially you don't get tone that crisp from most people who unless they're using a pick.
Oh
yeah, she's doing a good job.
Beautiful female guitarist compilation in Instagram.
Oh, I only watched. I only saw the first one, so I don't know. Beyond the first one, I don't know.
Man, I had no idea how much the television changes the lighting.
Yeah.
I turned the TV on because the soccer game's coming on soon.
Oh,
because I use it as my backlight. She's not even playing, is she?
Well, no, it's just kind of cutting out.
I don't think that
wasn't live.
That wasn't live. Not live.
Those are just power chords too.
That's a Muse song.
She plays.
Yeah. She plays.
Still, I still think they're not doing the thing of doing it live with the what that music is. It just sits too well in the music for it to be saying that you're doing.
Yeah, but she does look like she knows what she's doing.
Oh, she knows what she's doing. It's just I think in both the cases it would have been the same song. It's just we're not watching it like we're watching an overdub.
It also just feels less cheap when they wear clothes.
Yeah.
Like you're only trying to get by based on your talent.
See that one sounds like it's not quite sitting in the music in the way that it might.
Yeah,
be.
that one sounds like it might be real.
Yeah, that's real life.
That's sitting in the music.
I just can't hear it very well.
Yeah.
It's not. You can't hear it well in the main thing, but it's because it's in the music. It wasn't. That's not.
She's actually got a thumb pick.
Yeah,
that's not the sound of that living room, though. Like it's got like this echo on it, and it's an acoustic.
Yeah.
Like, well, she's playing. That's in a studio or something. Maybe she's playing it there in the living room. But...
maybe she's got it plugged into a DI.
That one feels live.
Yeah. I feel like if you're going to play a flying V, you have to be able to play like that.
No,
I feel like a flying V is the type of guitar that you shouldn't be legally allowed to purchase until you're like really fucking good at guitar.
Yeah, every single one of these plays, none of them don't play.
Yeah, I know.
You know what? You know what patriarchal thing that we have totally been neglecting this entire time?
Huh.
Here we all are talking about technique and tone and recording, and we haven't mentioned which one we think is hottest.
Oh shit!
You want to know what?
Be more toxic.
You want to know what? I'm not even gonna say this to John Larsen, John Dehlin Virtue Signal. I haven't even thought of it. which one is?
That's
which
all
one's
I
the
thought
hottest of the 10?
That's all you thought of.
Yeah, I haven't even payed attention to their.
Cancel you.
I've just been angry. I've been seething this whole time that I haven't seen any goddamn boobs.
Because I'm trying to think. So, like, real life, attractive, super talented guitar players, like St. Vincent, and I think she's even queer.
Really?
But
is she
like,
the one that
she seems
used to
intent
do-
on just being talented, and I've not seen her whining at all in the media about how she doesn't get a fair shake. Have you never listened to St. Vincent?
Bassist, one of the best like studio bassists of all time. That lady who used to do
They're
the
okay.
play for the Beach Boys.
That
okay.
live performance of Fast Slow Disco is one of my favorite things of all time.
Which one is that? Fast Slow Disco?
I'll show it. I'll send it in the group. But so it's St. Vincent. One of their songs. They did slow disco and then they did fast slow disco, but it's a live performance specifically that was one of the best things.
She is, by the way, because like I saw her, like I didn't plan to see. It was one of those like a festival show. That's right. It was a Twilight concert here in town. And I'm like, oh well, whatever. I've heard a few of her songs. Like she's one of those things where it's like, oh, it's worth seeing the performance.
Oh
like,
yeah, no, she's not only a really good guitarist, she's a goddamn performer. She's great.
Oh no, yeah, absolutely. The performance is incredible. And it just so happens that she is remarkably attractive.
Oh, she's gorgeous. Yeah. It's yeah. There's I don't know, there's a few. I like that band Always.
I don't know Always.
It's Always, but instead of a W, it's two V's.
Have you watched Molly Tuttle?
That sounds familiar, but
I'm gonna show you that. I'll show you what is that. I probably can't play the whole song. Where should I fast forward to? Is she ripping it somewhere?
She doesn't really rip it that much in this one. It's just a beautiful song.
Because she does rip it from time to time, but she's a lot more like she's got chops, but she's a guitar player that's willing to sit back and do nothing when the song needs her to do nothing.
She does what the song calls for.
I can see she's got like that
lead part is great. It's not complicated or anything, but it's fucking awesome.
Even with simple riffs like that, you can tell like when there's like that Muse type control of the neck. You know what I mean? Like how what's his name from Muse holds it.
Matt Bellamy,
yeah, let me see here. What is this song?
Hello, Phil here from.
This is a pretty good channel. It goes over like shredders.
Palm muting and the vibration.
Oh, come on, where is it?
Just slowing it down and trying to simplify, I guess.
Where is it?
It's unavoidable.
An example of a phrase where you
just the.
Jesus.
And I just wanted to point out that descending run. You could see.
Shut up. Let me see. She plays with the. Where's she soloing? Yeah, she's a flat picker.
Lord.
She's good as hell.
That looks fun as hell.
But didn't somebody explain to her that she's a girl and that society doesn't want her to succeed in music because that's for
Why
men?
is she even trying?
Yeah.
Jesus.
But I mean, did she even spend any time choosing her outfit? She hasn't done her makeup. I don't see any eyeshadow.
I don't see underboob. Come on.
Do you even TikTok?
That's what we should do is be a musical critic, but only of the presentation, not of the actual music.
Yeah.
Good times.
This song is a bitch to learn.
See, because it looks easy.
It's only 3 chords, but the solos, but even the type of strumming they do is actually tougher than you'd imagine.
I'm just kidding.
That whole alternate picking thing is so crazy. Because it really does matter. It gives everything that pop that I don't know how to describe.
It's such a brain bend to do it.
Jesus. Well, that has more views than I would expect it to have. A lot.
Bluesgrass.
That is one of those things that's so funny. It's like when you're young and you're learning guitar, this is the least interesting thing in the world. And then, like 15 years later, after you've been fighting with your guitar, you're like, God damn, I wish I could do bluegrass.
Yeah, it's insane. The thing about that too is they were riffing.
Madness.
Alrighty. So
let's do 2 more
solved
hours.
atheism. We solved atheism again, and we took down Larsen. Got them.
John Larsen is gonna have that Scrooge tonight. He's gonna have the Scrooge night. He's gonna wake up tomorrow and gonna say, "I'm gonna reconsider my axiom."
Oh man.
Alrighty.
All right. Later.
See you, man.